Haribol. Om Aganatimadandashyangana Gana Sanakya Chaksurun Miritam Yanatashmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yanabhutale Om Aganatimadandashmai Sri Darati Swaparandikam Vandeham Sri Guru Siyata Parakamanam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sri Rupam Sagadadam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sajevam Sadvaitam Savidutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shivishikhan Vitam Stam Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Dev Maheshwara Guru Shaksha Parabrahma Tashmai Shri Gurave Namaha Durgame Pati Miyanda Shaskarapate Shaki Bhavishananda Shantu Shantu Varam Varam Mukam Kavid Bakarian Shabarashane Panga Girlanga de Katara Gane Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinu Bandhu Jagapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Jayatam Sarito Pango Mama Mandir Mater Gati Matsava Shiparam Bojo Radha Ramada Mohanam Seaman Rasa Rasaram Vibam Siva Karsan Venershan Uvira Gopinata Sri Esram Divyad Vrindaranya Kapadrumada Srimad Radnagada Shima Sanisto Sri Sri Radha Shira Govinda Depressadavi Seva Manushmanami Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmanya Taya Cha Jigati Taya Krishnaya Gopinaya Namo Namaha Mangalam Bhagavan Vishnu Mangalam Guru Rajaja Mangalam Padini Kaksho Mangarayatanu Hari Om Narayanaya Vidmahi Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tano Vishnu Prachodhyate Om Mahadevi Cha Vidmahi Vishnu Paditi Dhimahi Tano Lakshmi Prachodhyate Mahalakshmi Namastubhyam Namastubhyam Sare Sari Hari Priya Namastubhyam Namastubhyam Hare Hare Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanaside Devi Pranamani Hari Priya Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishes Sunivadi Praskita Desadani Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Thanks for joining us on Facebook, Brent and Jean, as well as, of course, Rob on Zoom. And we also have jumping in just now, Rakesh as well, Rakesh Raghava. Thank you all. And thanks to those who are yet to come. Yeah, skipping the initial prayers. And Lakshmi Nrsinga has just jumped on after a long time. Good to see you, Prabhuji. Awaiting your call number 2 about the prospect of having a festival of colors in Florida, and also Janardhan, otherwise known as the Butter Thief, has been in touch with me about doing same in Miami. So you guys might want to possibly collaborate. I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, Florida is too far to drive. I'll give advice, but I can't offer anything physical except the colors. I will sell you the colors at the devotee cost, the wholesale cost. We've got a whole warehouse full of colors. It's our good source of, secondary income. So we're revisiting again for the 3rd time, entitling this show, The Culture of Protection. And we start off with the list that Queen Kunti makes in her prayers to Krishna as Krishna is leaving for Dwarka. She says, Vishan Mahagni Purushada Darshanam Asat Sabya Vana Vanashakricha Mide Nika Mahara Chashto Damnyashtarash Chajma Hare Birakshanam. My dear Krishna, your lordship has protected us from the poison cake, from a great fire, from cannibals, from the vicious assembly of the Kurus, from sufferings during our exile in the forest, and from the battle where great generals fought. And most recently, fresh in our mind, is the fact that you've saved Uttara from the weapon, Uttara and her unborn son Parikshit, from the weapon of Ashwatthama. Now, many had died in the Kurukshetra war. This conversation between Kunti and Krishna takes place after the battle is over. There were roughly 4 million, several 100,000 soldiers who participated in the battle. And the only ones that survived on the Kaurava side were Kritavarma, Kripacharya, and Ashwatthama. There were more who survived on the Pandava side, but pretty much 99.99% of the soldiers on both sides were killed. And the reason that such a holocaust took place had to do with Duryodhana and company insulting, attempting murder, arson, kidnapping, and humiliation of the Pandavas as well as their wife Draupadi. Now, Draupadi was just like a sister to Krishna. It was said in the Mahabharata that Draupadi and Krishna could read each other's minds. They were on the same wavelength. Draupadi had the same complexion as Krishna. She was so Krishna conscious. She had that same monsoon cloud colored complexion. She was also called Krishna. She had as her nickname Krishna. So you couldn't look or listen to or see Draupadi or hear her without thinking of Krishna. And Krishna himself says, Sarvadriyaminam Saradamriyam Madanatana Naham Tebhyomanam. I do not know anybody but my devotees, just as my devotees do not know anybody but me. But Krishna knew Draupadi as his sister-like friend, and Draupadi knew Krishna in the same connection. So it's a society, the context of this whole Mahabharata events leading up to the war and post-war events. The society itself is we could call it as a society of protection, a culture of protection. And there are several categories of people aside from devotees. Devotees get special protection. Draupadi was entitled to protection and respect because she was a woman, but disrespecting any woman does not necessarily lead to a world war. So we have to emphasize that the reaction was so much more severe. The mishandling of Draupadi brought so much more of a severe reaction than just mishandling a woman. But the culture protects various classes of people in general. And then in specific, the protection that Krishna personally gives to his surrendered devotees is like, that's a whole new level. That's a different ballgame altogether. So here are the classes of men, people, citizens, who are entitled, who can claim protection from the king, from the government. Of course, first of all, the brahmanas. They are the ones who speak the scripture, who remind people of the prime duty of life. And they also, in order to keep their strength up so that they can speak powerfully, they take prasadam. So the Brahmin service has to do with their mouth. They speak Bhagavad Dharma and they honor prasadam. That's their duty. In the 10th canto, Hiranyakashipu asks his associates, demoniac associates, what's the best way to get Vishnu to come out of hiding? And they said to him, Brahma Vipro Gavo Chavedas Cha, Vipram Gavo Chavedas Cha, Tapjam Satyam Samodamaha, Shradaya Daya Chikitsidam, Kratavas Cha Haritanam. The first thing they said to upset Vishnu, to provoke Vishnu, is Viprascha, the Brahmins. Harass, kill, torture the Brahmins. The Vipras disrupt their sacrifices, prohibit them from doing religious rituals. That's the number one item on the list. If you want to incur the wrath of Vishnu, if you want to bring Vishnu out of hiding, I don't know why anybody would want to bring Vishnu out of hiding so they could fight with him, because it's like putting a noose around your neck. It's like pronouncing your own death sentences. But the demons, they don't really know what's right and what's wrong. They don't really know what's to be done and what's not to be done. So they're basically putting the noose around their necks by harassing the Brahmins. And then the second item on the list, Vipro Cha Gavo Cha, are the cows. Krishna cannot tolerate mistreatment of the cows any more than he can tolerate mistreatment of the Brahmins. So someone might say, well, Caru, in our present society, there are no Brahmins. Brahmins are ridiculed as being impractical, not contributing to the gross national product, being out of step with our consumeristic culture. So there's no encouragement of Brahminical culture, though we have thousands and thousands of schools, universities, and campuses. You cannot even find one course on the nature of the soul. you'll find not even one course teaching the difference between a dead body and a live body. Prabhupada asked this question at MIT University back in the 70s, big assembly of students and faculty of the most prestigious university in America, produced so many Nobel Prize winners. And Prabhupada said, can you tell me what is the difference between a living body and a dead body? And the whole audience sat silent. They couldn't answer. No, there was no training, no education on the crucial difference between the soul and the body. So the Brahmins are the ones who remind people of that difference and speak on behalf of the Lord. And the cows are the ones who provide milk. The property of milk is that if you drink milk, it'll create finer tissues within the brain so you can understand spiritual subject matters. People talk about goat's milk and buffalo milk. There are different types of milk, almond milk, cashew milk, all kinds of different milks. And they may be good on certain level. They may be good for the physical part of the body. But there is one thing that cow's milk does that no other type of milk does. It nourishes finer tissues within the brain so you can understand spiritual subject matters. Other types of milk may give you such nourishment that you can become academically proficient or get degrees and earn money and function in a materialistic society. But only cow's milk will give you that extra edge to get a grasp on what is beyond this body and what is beyond this lifetime. So cow's milk is especially valued in a protective, progressive society. And then think of the cow itself. Can the cow take care of itself? Can the cow live out on its own? Can the cow avoid predators? Can the cow find food? No, the cow has hardly any survival skills. I can't think of a single survival skill of a cow. Left on their own, they don't do well. God did not make the cow to be feral, to live in the forest or the BLM lands on their own. The cow needs to be provided for. The cow is crying out to be provided for, just like children need to be provided for. Old people need to be provided for. Ladies have to be given deference and provided for and sheltered and protected. No less so the cows. They are created by God to be domestic. There's no such thing as a wild cow. Originally, there may be hybrids and people may have bred for rough, tough Texas Longhorns and beef cows. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the original cow, descendant from the Sarabi, the milk cow, ladies and gentlemen, not the meat cow. The meat cow does not occur naturally in nature. That is due to genetic manipulation and breeding. But the milk cow is built, is created, is put here in the material world to be protected by human beings. It is our sacred duty. Just like you protect your parents, you protect your children, you protect your women folk, you're meant to protect the cow also. And when you make that commitment to protect the cow, you may not become a millionaire or a billionaire. It may crowd your ambition to make a lot of money on the stock market. You may not be able to travel as much on the freeways, live in as big a house, or have as many motor cars. But I'll tell you, when you make that commitment to protect the cow that cannot protect itself, you make a commitment for happiness. You take a huge, giant step towards the happiness of you and your family. The cow anchors you. It anchors you. It anchors your family. It pulls you together. It gives you a sacred responsibility, which blesses every area of your life. You won't have families spread willy-nilly all over the country. You won't need such a big freeway system. You won't need all the bells and whistles of modern technological society. If you make the commitment to protect the cow, you will get all the necessities of life just from the cow and the bull. You may not get the things you don't need. You may not get the things for which you have greed, but you will get everything for which you have need. So a society of protection starts with the Brahmins. the saintly God-conscious person. Then it next goes to the cows, and then women. Women are due protection. There's an old Vedic saying that says, hit with not even a flower a woman guilty of 100 faults. I like that saying. I'm going to repeat it. Hit with not even a flower a woman guilty of 100 faults. The protection of woman maintains the integrity, the chastity of society. It ensures that we get good generation after generation of progeny who are contributing moral, high-minded citizens. The protection of woman is the basis for peace, tranquility, domestic happiness, and progress in life. It cannot be underestimated how important it is that women should not be under threat from any source. Women should not be left to her own devices to go out and go half naked and expose herself in order to get a husband. As much of that as is feasible and practical can be done on her behalf. It's not to take away the independence of the woman, but it's actually to free the woman from having to fend for herself out in the marketplace and risk the chance of being exploited, and give her maximum time to be a wife, to be a mother, to be a nurturer, to make the domestic life like heaven on earth. Unfortunately, nowadays, women have to do so much of hunting and searching for a mate, job. They hardly have any time to do what women are really happy at and do what women are best at. And when I say women are happy in the home, I'm making a general statement. I don't want to offend anybody who's a high-powered executive, but generally speaking, it's true to say that this is their niche, so to speak. And alternative to that, there's a cynical statement which men have originated, which men have coined, says, why keep a cow when there's plenty of milk cheaply available in the market? So why, when women are not protected, when women are not given the space to concentrate on what they do best, which is making home like heaven, and forced to go out and basically solicit, I don't mean that. I mean solicit means put themselves on display in the marketplace, you might say, then the men will take advantage of that. The women will not get the commitments. They'll not get the institutional benefits of marriage. They'll give the youth, they'll give the best part of their life. They'll still have to be mothers. They'll still have children, but oftentimes they don't have the male influence in the house to provide adequate income, provide role model for the children. The woman has all the same duties, but she doesn't get the help that she's entitled to from the male gender. So I'm not going to go too far into that. I'm not an expert in the area, but hopefully that's food for thought. Now, it goes without reason. It's a no-brainer that civilized society is going to protect children. Any child who comes into the human form of life is emerging from the ocean of 8,400,000 species spread throughout the water, throughout the air, throughout the earth. There are non-moving living beings, there are insects, there are trees, there are reptiles, there are aquatics, there are birds. There are 8,400,000 species of life, and the number who are human is relatively few. Now, of the relatively few humans, there are very few that even have a sense of God. And of those who have a sense of God, there are very few who get the opportunity to learn about God through the authorized Vedic literatures. And out of thousands and thousands of people who follow the Vedas, most follow the Vedas only for some temporary material benefit, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. And out of thousands and thousands who follow the Vedas for some temporary material benefit, there might be one who inquires, is there something beyond dharma, artha, kama, moksha, sense gratification, economic development, religiosity, and liberation? and of thousands of such who inquire, one may actually know the difference, come to know the difference between the body and the soul. That's your Brahman. That's your Brahman. And then out of thousands and thousands of Brahmins, one may become Krishna conscious. When Madhavendra Puri excavated the deity in Vrindavan, the Gopal deity, he wanted to establish a system of worship for this deity. And so he took all the Brahmins who were in the area and then he reinitiated them as Vaishnavas. He gives the accent to this point that a Brahmin should become a Vaishnava in order to reach the highest perfectional stage of life. And a society which does not protect children is a society which is going to be anarchy. There's not going to be any future to look forward to in a society in which the children are not protected. And of course, that means the mother has to be protected in order for the children to be protected. And that means there has to be the respect for the marriage institution. Things should be conducted in such a way that every child grows up with two parents in the home. Single parenting, no parents, that's something you don't find in the Vedic culture. Two parents. That's the way to get well-adjusted children who are going to be good citizens. It says when Arjuna balks, he hesitates to fight in the Kurukshetra war, one of his prime objections is Sankaro Narakaiva Kulagaram Patanti Pitaro Lupta Pindadaka Kriha. If we fight this war, then many, many fathers will die, leaving their children fatherless, leaving their widows to raise those children on their own, putting a tremendous pressure on the single mother. And the result will be Shankaro Narakaiva. There'll be a generation of youth, of children who will grow up, enter into this world feeling unwanted and neglected. And they will create a hellish situation in this world. The bitterness, the resentment, the abandonment that they feel, they will take out on society in general. So at all costs, protect the children, and then backing up from that to protect the children, you have to protect the women, and you have to also preserve the sanctity of the marriage institution, of the two-parent household. And then, of course, the last category of protected beings in a high-class culture are the elderly men and women. It is said that the end of life is the chance, the end of life is the time to prepare for the life that never ends. One should never be ensconced and entangled in family life right up until the fag end. One should not leave one's body thinking of things which are undone. Oh, if I could only have a few more years to get my youngest granddaughter married. Oh, if I could only earn some more money so that I could leave each and every one of my children $1 million. Oh, if I could only find that lost child who's gone to San Francisco and is taking drugs. The concerns, the anxieties in the family circle are never ending. They're always there. There'll never be a time when you can say, everything's perfect, everything's peaceful, now I'm going to leave. You have to be able to leave when it's your time. When you're seeing the yellow light is old age. The yellow light comes just before the red light, just before the stoplight. So when the yellow light starts appearing in your life, there's those aches and pains, there's those wrinkles, there's the cough, there's the tightness around the hips, the knees flare up now and then. You have to ask people to repeat what they said more and more. I'm noticing that even when someone's sitting beside me at the table and speaking, I have to kind of lean over and sometimes say, what's that you say? What's that you said, Sonny? Could you repeat that a little louder? This is the yellow light. So when the yellow light appears, you need to drop it. You need to drop it. And society needs to make an arrangement that that's possible. Society needs to be arranged in such a way that once you reach the age of 50, you start thinking about dedicating your life full-time, more and more and more, and ultimately full-time to the service of the Lord. Because you do not want to be involved and absorbed in family concerns at the time of leaving this body. You took this present body because at the time of quitting your last body, you couldn't let go of concerns and anxieties about that last family. So because your mind at the time of leaving your previous body was colored with family affairs, that caused you to take birth in this current life in another family, and again get entangled and again get caught up in all of that. Now, if you leave this current body in the same stressed, tense state of mind that you left the last body, then you will have not solved your main problem. You will take another material body because your consciousness is materially covered. Then the material body complements your consciousness. At some point, you just have to drop it. You just have to leave it aside. Prabhupada anguished over leaving his family. He anguished over leaving his family. He was thinking, I'll go to America. I'll get my daughter married first. I'll settle that up. Then I'll take sannyas. I'll go to America. But a few years went by and he realized his daughter's not going to do what he wanted her to do anyway. No matter what nice arrangements, financial support, finding a good husband, she wasn't going to listen to him anyway. And so he said, what use is it? What use is it? I'm here, I'm in the family, but I'm not able to do anything anyway because she's not going to listen to me. So she said, Krishna, you get her married. She don't want to listen to me. She doesn't want to go along with my arrangement. So Krishna, you get her married. I need to leave. And obviously Krishna approved that decision because he gave him success in his mission. So, so successful human society is a civilization where we shoulder the burden of protecting women, children, we protect the cows, we protect the brahmins, we protect the elderly. And all these things are going to crowd into your aspirations for being very wealthy and very independent and very influential. No, there's a ceiling. There's a low ceiling when you accept these kinds of responsibilities. But there's an unlimitedly high ceiling for developing your character. That's the only asset that you're going to take with you when you leave this body. Whatever character development you've accomplished in this life is going to be your only permanent asset. So Krishna is always more interested in our developing character than in our surrounding ourselves with a temporary, comfortable situation. So he sent the cows our way, children our way, women our way, old men our way, Brahmins our way, to enrich our lives and to give us sacred responsibilities by which we develop our character and get the best possible placement and destination after leaving this current material body. Now, we're talking about protecting these creatures. Now let's flip it and see what's actually going on in the current society. The women are not protected. The children are abandoned and orphaned. Most of them grow up in a one-parent home. There's no cultivation of Brahminical culture. The cows are pretty much slaughtered universally. You'll hardly find a cow, even a dairy cow, which is going to live out its natural life. So what we see is that we're exactly 180 degrees away from a culture which is going to be peaceful, prosperous, and progressive. There's this verse that we find in the first canto, 8th chapter, just one of the previous verses in the same chapter. And it has to do with the protection of Uttara and the protection of Uttara's child and the protection of the Pandava dynasty, which was put into jeopardy by Ashwatthama when he released his nuclear weapon towards the embryo, Maharaj Parikshit, in the womb of his mother, Uttara. Now, we also mentioned in previous days that the Lord is perfectly capable of counteracting even a nuclear weapon. He did not have to appeal to Shiva, to Brahma, to any other demigod to help him out in this endeavor, even though this particular weapon was insurmountable. It was nuclear in nature. It was aimed at the embryo in the womb of Uttara. Krishna needn't have availed himself of any other assistant. He needn't have appealed to any other personality, because the nuclear weapon is part of his Brahmajyoti effulgence. Just like the sunshine is part of the rays coming from the sun globe, the elements, the composition of the nuclear weapon are part of the effulgence, which is emanating from the Lord. And so without taking help from any other person, without calling 911, the Lord was able to envelop the embryo within the womb and give him total and perfect protection from that scorching rays of the nuclear blast. There is nothing, there's no circumstance, not nuclear weapons, not even death itself. Read my lips, not even death itself, that the Lord cannot counteract. When he appeared in the prison house of Kamsa as the son of Devaki, now consider the circumstances. In the natural, didn't look good. Didn't look good for the good guys. The mother and father of God had been in prison for over a decade, their freedom restricted. With the approach of Krishna's birth, they were even put in shackles within the prison house. There were guards, there were armed guards. Her previous 6 sons had been mercilessly killed right in front of her very eyes by Kamsa. It didn't look good for the good guys. And yet, as soon as Krishna appeared at midnight in the prison house of Kamsa, Devaki take one look at him and realized everything's going to be just fine. Everything's going to be just fine. There were a lot of wrongs leading up to this rite. There were a lot of unfair situations, a lot of betrayals, a lot of disappointments, a lot of dead ends. You know, it was her marriage day, what should have been the happiest day of her life. She was going with her husband, Vasudev, to his home, to her new life. He was a great catch, handsome, well-born. Her brother was her well-wisher, driving her on the chariot. And then in a moment, it all went south. The voice from the sky boomed out, "Kamsa, you fool, you're driving the chariot of your sister whose 8th son will kill you." And from it being the happiest day of her life, it became the most trying, stressful day of her life. Kamsa grabbed her by the hair and was going to kill her. And Vasudev did some fast talking to save her life, but things took an unexpected detour. And yet, the moment that she saw Krishna appear within the prison house of Kamsa, she knew that it had all been for a divine purpose, that it hadn't been random, that it hadn't really been unfair. The detour, the unexpected turnabout in her life had been a divine arrangement by the Supreme Personality of God. So at a time when she should have been upset, depressed, hopeless, she said, "Mritur, midur, viala, bita palyam." Although this material world is such that mritur, bita palyam, bita means fearing, mritur, fearing death, bita palyam. Everybody is running here and there, plan making, earning money, trying to get influence, leveraging in order to try to avoid death. Death is chasing everyone in this material world. One time I was in the room with Prabhupada in Los Angeles. Prabhupada was speaking to some of his disciples, and there was a little alley below Prabhupada's apartment, and there were some shops that fronted on Venice Boulevard, and they had their back doors on this alley just below where Prabhupada's apartment. There was one chiropractor, I remember his name was Vance something, and he also taught martial arts in the evening. And so Prabhupada was talking, and wafting up from down below came these hoo, ha, hoo, ha, hoo, ha. After a while, Prabhupada stopped talking. He gave this big smile and he said, just see, they are thinking that when death comes, they will go, hoo, ha, and death will go away. But there's nothing and nobody who can counteract death except Krishna. Prabhupada even said there was one man, he had a brilliant idea that when death would come for him, he would cause death to turn around and go away. So what he did was he smeared his whole body in stool and went around like that. No one would go within 20 feet of him. And he figured death is a gentleman. He won't go within 20 feet of me. And he was probably right, but the Yamadutas don't have any such scruples. The henchmen of Yamaraj are not high-class sophisticates. They don't mind wading in and taking their booty from someone who's smeared in stool. Krishna can counteract, what to speak of a measly nuclear weapon, he can counteract death itself. Mritu, marto mritu, this is known, this material world is known as Mritu Loka, the place of death. And Mritu, the personality of death, occupies himself by chasing everybody in this material world who themselves run away in fear. Everything that they do is motivated by a fear of death and motivated by some false hope that by having a certain amount of money in the bank, or by having my name in the newspaper an X number of times, or by surrounding me with enough grandchildren and great-grandchildren, that some or other they'll be immune from death, even though it's evident that everybody who came before us has died, and we will also die. Still, some or other they maintain this false hope that death will give me a bypass, give me a pass, give me a waiver, give me a voucher. and it never happens. It never happens. But to Krishna, within the dark prison house of Kamsa at the midnight hour, Marto mitu vyadapi lokam padam pajambyam. And yet now that you, Krishna, have appeared within this material world, death is no longer chasing the living beings, but death himself is running away from you. So death conquers everybody, but you have conquered death. For those who keep you first class, for those who chant your holy names, for those who keep their faith in you, even during the darkest hours, you will appear before them at the time of death, and you will save them. Tesha Maham Samudara Mitu Shamshara Shagara. Krishna promises in the Bhagavad Gita, to those who worship me with devotion and meditate on my transcendental form, Tesha Maham, I personally will come on the back of Garuda, Sumudara Mitu Shamshara Power, to extract you, to extend my loving hand down to you where you're wallowing, treading water in the ocean of samsara, and I will be your life. I will be your lifeguard. I will pull you up. All you have to do is dedicate your mind and dedicate your words and dedicate your actions in devotion to me, and I will be your savior. So there is nothing that Krishna cannot counteract. And we have two good examples from the brother-sister combination. We have two good examples. We have Hiranyakashipu and we have Holika. They both got wounds from Brahma. Brahma is the creator of this universe. He's the most powerful living being amongst all of us. He resides on the top planet. Of all the 8,400,000 species of life, he is the number one. He is his own species. He lives for about 311 trillion years. He knows everything that's going on within the universe. So he gave a boon to Holika that she would not be burned by fire. And he gave another boon at a different occasion to her brother. They wouldn't be killed day or night, land or sea, inside the house or outside of the house, and so on and so forth. We're all familiar with the story. So what happened with Holika. She'd burned many babies, taken advantage of that boon which Brahma had given her. She could have saved babies. She could have done just the opposite, gone into a burning building and saved people. But she did just the opposite. Whenever she saw a fire, she would go into the fire with babies, and the babies would be killed. She'd done this multiple times, multiple times. So on the one occasion, she was asked by her brother, Hiranyakashipu, take this upstart Prahlad into the fire. I'm sick of him. I don't want to recognize him as my son anymore. I disown him. He's the friend, he's the devotee of my enemy, Vishnu, who killed my brother, Hiranyaksha. He's a traitor. Take him into the fire and finish him off. So based on the benediction that had been given to Holi by Lord Brahma, the creator of the universe, she took Prahlad, and as she'd done many, many times in the past, she entered into a blazing fire, confident that what had happened in the past would happen on this occasion as well. Imagine her surprise when Prahlad was untouched and she got burned to ashes. Whoa, 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 what's going on? This is not supposed to happen. And Prahlad walked out. So what happened was her benediction by Brahma came up against the protection of Krishna, not only because Prahlad was a child. As a child, he was entitled to general protection. But as a devotee of the Lord, he was eligible for a whole different level of protection. He was immunized even from death itself, immunized even from fire, from wind, from poison, from snakes, from elephants, from falls, from great altitudes, immunized against all of that because he was in a special category of protection, which is available to pure devotees of Allah. When the Prahlad's chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, chanting the name of Ahamsa Rasha Prabhavo, he from whom millions and millions of universes come, and the protection that he has from Krishna comes up against the protection that Holika has from Brahma, who's only the Lord of one tiny universe, which is one universe amongst millions of universes with millions and millions of Brahmas. So on this occasion, Prahlad's protection stood up, and the threat represented by Holika collapsed. Krishna counteracted fire. He counteracted death. In fact, turned it around and caused Holika herself to be, immolated in the fire. And of course, the same thing happened with Hiranyakashipu. So Kunti is giving these prayers to Krishna. She has had a history of abuse, a history of betrayals, a history of persecution as long as your arm. She has gone down through the list, one after another, mitur, over and over and over again. No sooner did the Pandavas come out of one dangerous situation than they entered into another dangerous situation. And yet, in all of that, Krishna never let them down. Krishna saved them from nuclear weapons. He saved them from poison. He saved them from fire. And he also saved them from death itself. And so in this series of verses, series of prayers, Kunti is referred to as Sati. Sati means chaste because of her unalloyed devotion to the Lord. Devotees of the Lord are chaste. When they're in trouble, when they're in extremis, they do not look to or think of any other savior than Krishna himself, the Supreme Personality. They do not look to or think of any demigod or any great saint or any great sage, certainly not any politician, certainly not any military person, certainly not any soldier or even any general, no weapon for themselves. They just call out Krishna, 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 knowing that Krishna is more than capable of protecting his devotees and counteracting anything that comes against them, even death itself. And this is the characteristic of the whole family of the Pandavas, the sons, the mother, the grandsons, they knew nothing except Krishna, and therefore the Lord was always ready and waiting to help them in all respects and in all circumstances. And so following the footsteps of the Pandavas and taking a leaf from their book, we also can ensure protection for ourselves, for our family members, for those who are near and dear to us, and hopefully for our larger international society for Krishna consciousness as it pushes forward God consciousness all over the world. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Thanks for jumping on board with us here on Facebook, Satyanarayan Vishishta. Thanks very much for being with us today. Manasa Ganga, she has finished her Tulsi. Have you figured out how to post that? I have a copy somewhere. I have to remember to share that with everybody. Wonderful completed painting of Tulsi Maharani. Thank you for that, Manasa Ganga. And Bhavi, as usual, is very cryptic. Stay about daughter, any more details? You know, Vaibhavi is always mystical. She always keeps the feminine mystic up because half the time you don't even know what she's saying. Stay about daughter, any more details? Interesting. Well, if anyone can decipher that, please let me know. Okay. Now, less equivocal is another message from Vaibhavi in which she gives 3 smiley faces. Now that I can understand. Thank you. Lakshmi Nrsimha gives a Srila Prabhupada ki jai. He appeared with us for some time and would contribute to the discussion and sing beautiful kirtans at the end, but he's had several moves in his life, from Puerto Rico to Alachua. Now I think he's in a 3rd place. But anyway, it's good to see you there, Lakshmi. Brent, thank you for jumping on board, Brent. And Jean. Jean has never missed a single session, I don't think. Rob, do you have something to share with us this morning?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. It was a wonderful class today.
Thank you.
I had several takeaways if you're ready for them.
I'll just get them from your email, but please share them verbally, orally with all of us now.
Okay. Don't be attached to the material, nurture the spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
When the light is yellow, be a spiritual fellow. Protect life, avoid strife.
Nice, nice.
Krishna's affection is the perfect protection.
Oh, wow.
It's not worthless, it's for divine purpose.
Mm.
When death gives chase, don't fear, have faith. Even if you're Hiranyakashipu, death still comes for you. Only Krishna can save, so it pays to behave.
Oh my gosh. Every one of those is right on. Every one of those is, you hit them out of the park. The comment section today is going to be this big, I think, you know, with all the
Haribol.
You're really on today, Rob.
It wasn't me, it was you, Prabhuji.
The muse is favoring you this morning. I don't know if you ever heard of this, but I use an app for, you know, composing songs and all. It's called although you don't seem to need any help at all, but just to share with people who are interested in this kind of level of creativity, I got a few years ago an app called Rhymer's Block, RHYMERS, Rhymer's Block. Costs like $3 something, and you can put any word in there and it'll give you every word in the English language that rhymes with it. It really streamlines things for me. I can sit down in a half an hour, I can churn out a rap song, you know, starting with anything really, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam verse, or I can take somebody else's rap song and I can actually even improve upon it and polish it up. It's a great resource. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that with everyone. I might actually write it in the comment section after here. FYI, you will send those to me, Rob. I'm going to use every single one of them today. I'll take that as a yes.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes.
All right. Thanks to everyone. Have a great rest of your week. Appreciate your having been with us Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We'll be back Sunday night for the talk, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, we'll move on from this verse to another verse and another subject matter. In the meantime, chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare.